Taxes can do more than fill a treasury. They can forge a nation or shatter an empire. In the 1760s, a series of British taxes imposed upon the American colonies did precisely that, sparking a fire that would ultimately blaze into the American Revolution. The colonists, separated from their mother country by a vast and unforgiving ocean, felt the sting of these duties not just in their purses, but in their very identity as free-born Englishmen. Their cry was not simply about money, it was about a fundamental principle: no taxation without representation. This was not a plea for lower taxes, it was a demand for a voice, a rejection of governance by a distant parliament where not a single one of them sat. To the colonists, representation was a practiced right, rooted in their local assemblies. These homegrown legislatures, elected by property-owning men, had long levied local taxes and managed colonial affairs. When Britain's parliament, an ocean away, imposed direct taxes, it felt like a usurpation of cherished tradition. The colonists said they were treated not as subjects with rights, but as a revenue source, their prosperity siphoned to pay for Britain's imperial ambitions and the costs of the French and Indian War. The core conflict was constitutional. London saw Parliament's authority as supreme, its power to tax absolute. Britain argued the colonists were virtually represented, like many non-voting citizens at home. Americans called that a fiction. How could a member from Kent or Cornwall understand a farmer in Massachusetts or a merchant in Virginia? They demanded actual representation, officials accountable to those who elected them. That philosophical divide set the stage for a decade of escalating conflict. Each new tax was seen not as finance, but another nail in the coffin of liberty. Colonists feared that conceding one tax would open the door to limitless claims on their property, their labor, their future. That fear turned merchants, farmers, lawyers, artisans into revolutionaries. The road to 1776 was paved not with gold, but with stamped paper, tax tea, and the conviction that to be governed without consent was a form of slavery. The first significant jolt to the colonial system came with the Sugar Act of 1764. On its surface, the act lowered the tax on foreign molasses, a key ingredient in the colonial rum industry. Previously, the tax had been so high it was widely ignored. Smuggling was rampant. The new lower tax came with vigorous enforcement. The British Navy was ordered to patrol American waters. Customs officials were incentivized to seize ships suspected of smuggling. This wasn't merely trade regulation. It was a direct assault on the colonial economy. Merchants faced confiscation. Profits evaporated under heavy enforcement. Adding insult to injury, trials moved to Vice Admiralty courts without juries. A Crown-appointed judge decided fates. That struck at the heart of the colonial legal system. It felt like a move to strip rights and place fate in Crown-loyal hands. If the Sugar Act sent tremors through merchants, the Stamp Act of 1765 sent a shockwave through every corner of society. It required a paid stamp on legal documents, newspapers, pamphlets, licenses, almanacs, even playing cards and dice. Unlike an external trade duty, this internal tax intruded into daily life and business. The reaction was immediate and ferocious. Colonists saw the Stamp Act as proof of parliamentary tyranny. It wasn't the cost that enraged them, it was the precedent it set. If Parliament could tax paper, what stopped it from taxing their land, tools, even the windows in their houses? Colonial assemblies passed resolutions. A Stamp Act Congress met in New York, an unprecedented show of intercolonial unity. No taxation without representation became a roar. The tax, imposed without consent, violated their rights as Englishmen. The tremors had become a full-blown earthquake. After protest firestorms, the Stamp Act was repealed in 1766. Brief calm followed. Parliament was not finished. In 1767, the Townshend Acts imposed duties on imported goods: tea, glass, lead, paint, paper, argued as external taxes. Colonists rejected the hair-splitting. Worse, the revenue would pay governors and judges, cutting assemblies off from their power of the purse. A new customs board cracked down with general warrants. Intrusive searches, corruption, and friction deepened suspicion and resentment. In the face of the Townshend Acts, resistance grew more organized, widespread, and sophisticated. Boycotts became the sharpest weapon. Merchants pledged not to buy or sell British goods, hitting British manufacturers where it hurt. Women led at home, forming Daughters of Liberty and promoting homespun over British textiles. Sons of Liberty organized mass meetings and enforced boycotts, sometimes with intimidation and the warning of tarring and feathering. In 1772, urged by Samuel Adams, Boston formed a committee of correspondence. Letters, pamphlets, and broadsides crisscrossed colonies, turning isolated discontent into a continent-wide movement. A farmer in Georgia could feel a Boston merchant's pain and purpose. Boycotts showed economic power, the Sons showed physical resolve, committees forged intellectual and political unity. This network became the nervous system of the Revolution. By 1773, tensions boiled. The Tea Act sought to rescue the East India Company, not by new taxes, but monopoly and direct sales. Though cheaper than smuggled Dutch tea, it retained the Townshend duty. Colonists saw a trap, a Trojan horse for surrendering principles. Protesters forced resignations and tea ships to return. In Boston, Governor Thomas Hutchinson held firm until the night of December 16, 1773. Colonists, many disguised as Mohawks, boarded 3 ships. They lifted more than 340 chests and dumped every leaf. The Boston Tea Party was no riot. It was a calculated political protest. Britain struck back with the coercive acts. The colonists called them intolerable. Harbor closed, charter curtailed, town meetings restricted, governors' powers expanded. Instead of isolating Boston, the acts united colonies. By September 1774, the First Continental Congress convened. Britain's iron fist hardened colonial resolve. Closing Boston aimed to starve submission. Instead, aid poured in, proving unexpected unity. Dismantling self-government and limiting town meetings felt like rule by decree. The Administration of Justice Act, Murder Act, signaled officials could escape colonial juries. Quartering deepened the sense of occupation. General Thomas Gage imposed de facto martial law. Redcoats filled Boston streets. Tensions made violence likely. Relations curdled. Making an example of Massachusetts backfired. Other colonies saw an attack on all. Moderates turned. Britain's iron fist pushed America toward armed conflict. Lexington and Concord loomed, not over taxes, but who would rule America. The movement was shaped by remarkable leaders who turned anger into a cause. Samuel Adams, the intellectual organizer, helped found the Sons of Liberty and drove the committees of correspondence with a relentless pen. Patrick Henry electrified Virginia against the Stamp Act. In 1775, he thundered, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." John Hancock, wealth at risk, ships harassed, lent resources and respectability. His signature became a symbol of defiance. A Puritan populist, a frontier lawyer, an aristocratic merchant, different temperaments, one purpose. Skilled propagandists, speakers, and leaders, they turned tax protests into a philosophical and military struggle, risking lives, fortunes, and honor. They made the case that liberty required consent, and they organized to win it. The colonists drew from a rich tradition, especially John Locke. A century earlier, Locke argued natural rights, life, liberty, property, come not from kings or governments, but from nature and God. Government exists to protect those rights and is legitimate only with the consent of the governed. Without elected representation in Parliament, colonists could not consent to parliamentary taxes. By Locke's logic, the Stamp Act and Townshend duties were illegitimate, violations of the social contract. If a government breaks that contract and becomes tyrannical, The people have not only a right, but an obligation to alter or abolish it. The Declaration's long train of abuses and its famous preamble echo Locke's philosophy, translated by Thomas Jefferson into America's creed: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Grounded in natural rights and consent, a tax dispute became a struggle for human liberty. Locke's ideas lit the fuse, giving moral and philosophical justification to build a nation on freedom. The story of no taxation without representation is more than a chapter in a book. It's a timeless warning about the bond between a people and their government. When voices are ignored, concerns dismissed, and property taken without meaningful consent, loyalty frays. Today, many feel disconnected from distant centers of power. The issues have changed: federal debt, immigration, complex regulations. But the fear of a lost voice remains. Many conservatives see parallels with an overreaching central government. They point to spiraling debt, a bewildering tax code, and a vast regulatory state burdening families and small businesses. Decisions by career politicians and unelected bureaucrats can feel unaccountable. Immigration and border security raise issues of consent and the rule of law, with concerns about strained schools and hospitals funded by taxpayers. A 1776 lesson: restore limited government, fiscal responsibility, and empower local communities. Champion tax cuts, deregulation, and secure borders to reconnect the governed with their government.